All right, welcome everybody. It is May 11th, 2017. I am excited to get going today. As many of you have heard via email over the past couple of days, I finally solidified the dates for the two-day Fix and Flip Summit that is going to be happening at my office in Wakefield, which is about 10 miles north of Boston. And so let me just put those dates up here. So we are going to be hosting it on July 20th and 21st of 2017, which is a Thursday, Friday. And for those of you who are going to be flying in and who are going to be in the Boston area on Wednesday, you can stop by the office. We're probably going to do a dinner as a group on that Wednesday night and then jump right into things on Thursday. I have already gotten a bunch of confirmations, and I'm not theoretically charging for the event, but I think I put on there that you have to pay $29 to reserve your confirmation, and I am doing that just in order to make sure that I know who's coming. Not that anybody would really be too scared from walking away from $29, but I just want to make sure that I know for sure who's coming and who isn't, because my office realistically can probably only fit 30 to 35 people. And so I did the announcement last night via email, and about half of the event is sold out. So we've got probably 15, 16, 17 spots open, and I am just opening it to first come, first serve. And I have been to a bunch of these events at other companies. I've flown out to a bunch of different quote-unquote gurus all across the country, and I have always left these with a lot of great information. And for those of you who are kind of thinking about maybe possibly coming, I think the biggest thing that you end up walking away with when you go to one of these events is kind of a vision for where you want things to go in the future. And so when you come to my office, you're going to see, for most of you, kind of what things could look like if you set up your systems and processes in the same way that we have it. So the goal wouldn't be to say, hey, you guys need to get to this place in 2 or 3 months, but to have an idea of how all the systems within my business work. And so I'm actually going to be interviewing one-on-one everybody, the main players in my office, the real estate agents that are closing the most acquisition transactions, the administrative staff that supports us on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to have my attorney there, probably have one of our accountants there, and so we're going to literally walk you through everything in our business, in addition to checking out some of the properties that we're currently renovating and some of the stuff that we're going to be working on in the future. So everything that I sent out wasn't really that pretty. I mean, I gave a very generic outline of what things are going to be, but what I am going to do is over the next week or two, I am literally going to make an outline of hour by hour what we're going to be doing. So for example, on the Thursday, July 20th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., it may be a talk about where we're at the current economic cycle, how that impacts real estate, and how that changes over the course of the different cycles, just as an example. So I'm going to send out an hour by hour kind of handout so that you know exactly what we're going to be covering to help you both decide whether or not you're going to come, and also to know on a day-to-day basis, if you have to step out for an hour, which which part of the event you may want to kind of step out of. So Kim over in California asked, will it be recorded? Yes, we are definitely going to record this, for sure, because some of the stuff that I'm going to be covering is actually going to be training that I know is very necessary, that is not currently in the portal. Kind of some back stuff that I know you guys need help with, and I just haven't produced yet. So some of it, all of it's going to be recorded, and some of it is going to get implemented into the onboarding for everybody that comes on board. So anyways, definitely we'll have some more exciting announcements on that coming up. Any questions on that, just let me know. I'm also working on getting some discounted hotel rooms so that the stay itself won't be super expensive. All right, so what I want to jump into now is a survey that I actually sent out to the group. I think it was yesterday. It was either yesterday or the day before. And so 20 of you responded, and for those of you who responded, thank you very much. And so what I wanted to do that survey for was to determine really what everybody needed help with. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of different people at a lot of different levels within the business, and so I wanted to see what everyone really needed help with so that I could develop more training and more systems. And so the first question that I asked was, which of the following do you need the most help with within your real estate investing business? And the majority, almost 50% of the people said that the number one thing that they needed help with was need help finding great deals. And so obviously for those of you who are working directly with me on a day-to-day basis, we are helping you get leads in your market every single day. But I have identified a need for additional training on systems that we use in order to generate leads. And one of those that I'm going to be rolling out is the mailing system that we use. And so we send out in the Boston area over 1 million mailer pieces per year. So I'm going to be rolling out the exact system that we use in order to get those mail pieces out, how to determine who you should be mailing, the process that we use, what our envelopes look like, what our letters look like. For those of you who are going to be actually coming here in person, you're actually going to be able to get a tour of our mailroom. So in our Boston office, we have somebody that works the mailroom full time, and we have dedicated about 700 or 800 square feet that has mailing machines in it. So I'm going to create some training. Obviously, the mail room, the mail system itself, that part of it you don't need. You don't need it ever. We only really did it because it's cost effective and we like to control our marketing as much as we can. But we're going to walk through how to do this even if you're using a third-party provider. So help finding great deals is something I'm going to be focused on for sure. And then the second thing was needing help on where to start, okay? And I know there's a lot of confusion, especially for newer people, on what the first steps are. So between knowing where to start and needing help finding great deals made up 70% of what people need help with. So a lot of the training that I'm going to be creating over the next couple of months is going to be focused on those two things. When it comes to finding great deals, the second question I had up here, when it comes to finding great deals in my market, I wanted to get a sense of how easy it was for everybody in their market to get great deals. And I gave three responses. Number one, that you've given up on finding great deals because there's too much competition. Number two, you're finding some deals but struggling to find the amount that you want. And number three, you're able to find more deals than you can handle. And I had a very good sense of where this answer would be before even sending out the survey, but nobody is finding more deals than they can handle. And part of what I'm going to cover in the economic section of the in-person event is how this is going to actually end up changing in the not so distant future. So everybody is struggling to find deals. Everybody wants help on lead generation. Everybody wants help on systems. So this question here, when it comes to my real estate investing systems, nobody said that they had all of their systems in order and had no real room for improvement. So everybody, the response was basically split between you have no systems at all, which is, by the way, completely normal, unfortunately, and you feel somewhat good about your systems, but you could definitely make some improvements. So I have some system stuff that I'm going to be working on also in order to support some of the people that we're working with. I've talked to a couple people who are on the line right now that really could use an administrative assistant but don't have the budget for it. So I'm going to be working on getting them some administrative support as well. All right, so this is the question I really wanted to touch on today. What you guys need help with, okay? So I got 16 responses to this, and a bunch of them finding leads, getting systems, analyzing properties. So this is something that I really didn't think about at all in terms of training. So a bunch of you have wanted me to actually review some deals during these calls, to review what the numbers were, how we came to the determination on whether or not it was a great deal. And so I actually have a presentation already made up on some of our worst deals, why they happened, and how easy it is to not repeat those mistakes. So I'm going to be probably recording that and releasing it to everybody, but then I am also going to be going over some deals in person, and I'm going to ask some of the people that are on these calls on a weekly basis to send some of their deals to me, and so that we can actually review them on one of these calls. So bunch of good things came out of this. Definitely got some good information, some good feedback. So thank you everybody who did respond. So does that all make sense? Does anyone have any questions out of the gate, either on any of the stuff that we covered or anything related to the in-person event? So if you do have anything, just type them right in, and if not, I'm going to jump right into the questions that I got this week. All right, one question came in. I've actually been asked this one a couple times. Would I be able to bring my partner to the event? Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I mean, it's definitely better, I would say, if you have a partner, or even if you have somebody that you work with closely in your business, if you have like a top real estate agent that you want to bring, I don't want to say the more people you bring, the better, but I definitely think that if you're working closely with somebody, it's much better for them to come, because it's hard to kind of translate an experience to somebody else. So I think that if you do have a partner, it absolutely would make sense to bring them. But even if you have, kind of a manager of your company or somebody that's second in line, it may make sense to bring them as well. The only thing I would just need to know that if you do that, let me know, just so that we reserve that space. And I missed your other question about will it be recorded. Oh no, I did get to that one. Yeah, so it will be recorded. All right, so let's start out. Let's jump right into these questions. So, all right, this wasn't a question. Somebody set up an appointment. They got a listing, which is common, by the way. So Cindy is an investor over in North Carolina, and she had an active real estate license, and I definitely encouraged her to try to get licensed as soon as possible, because what she's seeing, like everyone has seen, is that quite a few of these leads end up going retail, and by retail I mean that they end up listing the property instead of going with an investment offer. So you really want to be able to capitalize on those as much as possible. If you don't have any system of capitalizing on the ones that go retail, you're kind of throwing money out the window. I mean, you've paid for the lead, you've spent the time to analyze the property, you've gone out there, you've built rapport with them. In a lot of cases, they're going to want to work with you. So when you tell them, I can only make an investor offer, and there's nothing I can do if you don't accept my investor offer, they're going to be disappointed. You're not going to make any money. So if you can fairly easily get your real estate license, I would highly suggest doing it. Question from Heidi. She had 2 appointments. One was already listed with a real estate agent. On the first appointment, the listing was going to expire within a couple weeks, but the last appointment I went on was a fairly new listing. Just wanted to know how you would proceed. So this does happen here and there, that somebody will have their property listed and they may have some difficulty in selling it, and then they may call an investor to make a cash offer. And so at the end of the day, these can be deals, right? Because if somebody has their property listed for quite a while and then they get frustrated by the fact that they can't sell it, and then they reach out to an investor to make an offer, it's not uncommon for that to end up working out as an investment deal. And so if the seller is under contract with a real estate agent to list their home, and if you go out to that property and you make them an offer, that seller just has to understand that they still have to pay that real estate agent. So if they are no longer under contract with that real estate agent for whatever reason, then they don't have to pay that real estate agent. But some sellers do get confused by the fact that they still have to pay the real estate agent if they're under contract with them. So it is important to know that to educate the seller that they can't just cut the real estate agent out. And so I would proceed with those as an investor in the same way that I would go about any other potential lead. The one caveat to that is if you really, really, really strongly feel like there is no potential for an investment offer. So for example, if the property has been listed on the MLS for 30 days at $300,000 and the seller calls you and wants you to make them a cash offer, and they are adamant that they will not take anything less than $295, for example, well, at that point you know for sure that it's not a deal, and you have no potential to get that listing yourself if you're an agent. So the ones that are listed, I would screen them just a little bit more than the traditional lead that comes in, but they still can be great deals. So I would definitely, for the most part, treat them the same. All right, there was a cold call lead that I spoke with. How would you handle it? He doesn't have any interest in selling, but would consider it if we made him a good offer. Man, I love these ones. These ones are some of the most frustrating people on the face of the earth. This is very, very, very common. And so let me just actually show you guys a tool that we have within my office. So we actually, in my Boston office, we compile a list of all of these properties. Let me just pull this up really quickly. So I don't really, why is this not popping up? Give me a second here. I don't know really what the mentality of a seller is that wants to sell their property, but is unwilling to list it and doesn't really want to bring anybody into the house. But it's very, very common. And so what we do in the Boston office is that for every one of these properties where we meet with somebody, they won't take an investment offer and they won't list the property. We put them into what we call our off-market property database. And what our off-market property database does is it basically alerts everybody else that's in my office, every real estate agent that's in my office, about these particular properties. And so as you can see, all of the agents in my office have access to this database. And so they'll be able to see that there's a property in Rowley that's a multifamily. Urbane was the one who went out to the home. So, well, actually, let me go down. All right, so condo in Haverhill, James Fallica is the person in my office that went out to see the property. He's saying it's a nurture, that they're asking $219,000. And so we put all of the information related to this appointment into this spreadsheet. And so what we try to do internally is we try to find a buyer for it. So when somebody basically says that you need to make them a good offer and they're interested in selling but not interested in listing, in the majority of cases that is not going to be an investment deal. So in the majority of cases, what you're going to want to do is see if you can find a buyer for it within the brokerage that you work for. And so the people that are on this call that are getting these leads that are in a much bigger brokerage are going to have a huge advantage over somebody who's in a 2 to 3 person brokerage. So in my market, in the Boston market, like most markets across the US right now, inventory is so tight for sellers that if we get one of these properties that the seller is willing to sell, but they won't list, but they're willing to consider a reasonable offer, it's usually as simple as us putting it on this database sheet and then somebody else in my office who's working with a buyer in that market finding a buyer. So if you're in a really small office or you're not a licensed real estate agent, it's going to be tough for you to do this. But if you're at a really big office like a KW or an office like ours who has, we have 135 agents as of today, when you have enough agents that you can kind of put this deal out to, a lot of times you can then find somebody for it. But usually ones like that don't really have much investment potential. All right, question from Joe. He has a question about an obstacle. Let's see here. All right, so this is a really good question. The question essentially is, if you know that you're going to wholesale a property, how do you approach it with the seller? Because at the end of the day, you're going to go in there, you're going to make them an offer, and then you are going to wholesale the property to somebody else. So you're going to need to then, after you get the property under contract, market that property to other investors in that area. So he's basically saying, how do you do that? And the first thing about wholesaling properties it doesn't matter how much capital you have. Every single day as a real estate investor, you want to be marketing to get more cash in order to fund your deals, marketing for discounted properties, and marketing for good labor. So you're going to be looking for capital, labor, and cash every single day. And so because of that, if you're always marketing for great deals, there's going to be, at some point, unless you have, nobody has an unlimited source of capital. So if you're constantly marketing for deals, there's going to get a point where you get a deal that you can't buy. And Joe, as of this point, has bought every single deal that he's come across. He's never wholesaled a deal before. And so his kind of fear is that he goes in, he meets with the seller, he makes them an offer, and then what do you do at that point? And so the first thing is, if you know for a fact that you're going to be wholesaling the property, there's no issue going in there and explaining to the seller that you constantly market for great deals. Either you're going to buy it or somebody else in your networking group is going to buy it. And so if you have a great deal, there's nothing wrong with explaining to the seller that it could be somebody else who ends up buying that deal. And so what you're doing as an investor is you're guaranteeing when you sign the contract with them that somebody is going to close on that property, whether it's you or it's somebody that you partner with or whether it's somebody that you just met. And so at the end of the day, you can explain that to them. There's no issue with doing that. I've never had an issue with a seller who has had any issue with that. Okay. Um, and what you're going to want to do if you know for sure that you have to wholesale the property, or even if you're going to buy the property yourself, is you need to get the seller always to agree to let you back into that property a few times before you close on it. So even if you're going to buy that property yourself to renovate and resell, you're going to go back in there with your contractor just to make sure that you get the budget tight so that you can plan the renovation. So you're going to need to get back in there anyways. And so if you're going to wholesale the deal, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have a one-time investor open house. And so like for me, I already have a database of all the cash buyers in the Boston area. And so when I have a great off-market deal that I'm looking to wholesale, I'll literally just blast out an email to my entire group just saying what the deal is. And I'm going to pull up an email just so you guys know exactly what that looks like. And we get them in for 1 hour and then take highest and best. So I haven't even wholesaled the deal. I've just been buying everything because we keep getting more funding and we're making more money doing it. But here's an example here. Actually, this isn't a good example because this one we didn't do an open house. That one we actually made the people do sight unseen. Okay, so here's one that we did wholesale. This was probably one of the last properties we wholesaled, which was last year, August 25th. So this Thursday, August 25th, from 11 to 12 p.m., we'll be hosting a one-time open house at a distressed property in Wilmington that needs work. And so we laid out the terms. The property is ideally suited for a fix and flip investor. The basic numbers are this. This Thursday showing will be the only showing that is possible. And so for this particular one, I think we got 15 or 20 people through the property, and we ended up getting 5 or 6 cash offers and ended up just taking highest and best. So the bottom line is you definitely want to make sure that you only do a one-time showing so that you're not, putting the seller through, a bunch of issues. And if you are marketing it to real cash buyers, you should not have any issue with doing a one-time open house. A lot of investors like myself will go to auctions and buy the property sight unseen. So the fact that you're able to get into the property is a huge bonus. Does that make sense to everybody? Any follow-up questions on that? Type them in. I'm going to pause for a second just to see if that all is pretty clear. All right, unrelated question just came in. How would you compensate a partner who brings in 50% of the money for a deal but does nothing else? We found the deal, we manage the contractor, and we resell the property. They are cash only. So to confirm, they're cash only, but they're only bringing 50% of the capital, right? So you're bringing the other 50%, is that correct? Correct, okay. All right, so in this market, this is basically the structure for what every piece of the puzzle is worth. Okay, so especially in a market like yours, if it's a really good deal, who found the deal is 40%. So if you just found the deal, that's worth 40%. Managing the cruise is 30%. And the cash is 30%. So now you're talking about bringing half the cash to the deal. So to me, that's worth 15% of the profit. And I would use this as a general guideline, the 40-30-30. And this is how, this is the most fair and equitable way to structure it. Now, have I seen cash get, way up there, way more than 30%? Yes, because at the end of the day, there are some people out there that have no money and they can't get a deal done unless somebody else puts up the cash, and the person who has the cash a lot of times has a lot of control, but in reality it's not worth as much as what most people might think. So I would structure it 40-30-30, and if they're bringing half, I would go 15. All right, Mike, who is one of my newest real estate agents in Massachusetts, who is also an investor. He's wondering what the market rates are for hard money in terms of the Massachusetts market. So hard money is kind of like the wild, wild west, because there is no legitimate, what should a hard money rate be per se. Hard money lenders tend to be ex-real estate investors that just are done fixing and flipping and managing projects and are now just kind of allocating their capital to lending on deals. So if you talk to 10 different hard money lenders, you're going to get 10 different rates and 10 different terms, but I will tell you what you should be looking for. So there's down payment, upfront points, and then interest rate. So most hard money lenders are going to want between 20 and 30% down payment. All right, so if you're buying if your acquisition cost for a $200,000 property, if your acquisition price is a $200,000 property, you're putting up $60K, and then let's say that there is a $60,000 renovation. What most hard money lenders are going to require that you do is put up the $60K, which is a 30% down payment, and then out of the $60,000 renovation, they're usually going to release this money in draws. So what's going to happen is they're going to upfront you $20,000 for the construction, then make sure that you got $20,000 worth of work done, and then release another 20, and then make sure that you have a total of $40,000 worth of work done, and then release the final 20. Okay, so that's fairly typical, but again, from one hard money lender to another, that can change. Hard money lenders also charge, in most cases, upfront points. And so what you're going to want to look for is a 2 to 3% charge up front, which is pretty typical. So on this $200,000 deal, you're going to be charged, say, $6,000 at 3 points. So reality on a deal like that is you're going to need the $6,000 plus the $60,000. You're going to need $66,000 to get that deal done. Interest rates, again, vary pretty widely, but commonly you're going to be looking for 12 to 15%. If it's a really quick turn deal, the difference between 12 and 15% is actually very, very minimal. Like if it's a 2 to 3 month project, you're going to look at your P&L at the end of the project and you're not going to see much of a difference between 12 and 15%. So these are kind of the terms that are common, but there are zero money down hard money lenders, and there are some in Massachusetts. They take 50% of the profits on the ones that I've seen in Massachusetts. So you're finding, this goes back to Kim's question about, what is the money worth? And so some hard money lenders will lend you all the money, but they'll take 50%. And so this deal really favors them. So you're finding the deal, you're managing the project, and they're getting half the profits. To be completely honest with you, this is a model that I've thought about offering at some point, because if somebody's willing to find the deal, if somebody's willing to manage a project, and I get half the cut just for doing nothing and just lending the money, that's a really profitable model. But again, when you're starting out, if you have zero money, you may have to do a couple deals like this just in order to get off the ground. So if you have to do it, you have to do it. But it definitely is in favor of the hard money lender. All right. Next question. Can you explain how investing in distressed notes might work? What risk could there be in buying a large quantity of distressed notes, getting a discount because of the quantity, and either the notes turn to be a good note, which would be worth more, or they continue being distressed and the note holder might acquire the property? So this falls under the category of things that I have read about and never seen done in real life. And there's a lot of things in the real estate investing world, like if you read books and you jump on these webinars, this is like a really niche area. And I know that people are doing this, but I know it's not that common. So I don't know anybody, and I have a pretty big network of people. I only know of one person that's doing this. But essentially, when you're investing in distressed notes, so you're buying a block of notes, meaning like mortgage payments, where people are behind, and so at the end of the day, you become the mortgage holder, and you're then collecting, or not collecting in this case, on what that person is supposed to be paying you. So for example, you may have somebody who owes $100,000 on their mortgage and who is very behind on it, and you may be able to buy that note, say, for $20,000. And so what ends up happening is your goal is to try to get that person caught back up. Sometimes you'll end up changing the interest rate on the person. You'll have some control over that. And if they don't ever get caught up, you would have the right to foreclose on them. And so at the end of the day, this is a strategy, a very passive strategy, where you're basically putting up a bunch of money and hoping to either get your interest back or foreclose on the property and then take the property and then either resell it or fix and flip it yourself. But I really don't have enough expertise on whether or not this is a very profitable thing or it isn't. I know that the traditional ways of fixing and flipping, wholesaling, buying, holding work in today's market, and they're very profitable. And I personally am not too interested in something like this, but it's not to say that it can't work and you can't make money, but I just don't know enough about it. All right, what else do you guys have for me? Anything else? It was kind of a quiet week for questions, so I'll keep it open for another couple minutes. I can go into anything that any topics that you guys want, but I don't want to keep rambling on if you guys don't have anything that you need from me. So I'm going to leave it open for another minute and see what comes in. And again, I'll stick around for as long as everybody needs me, but I don't want to keep rambling if you guys don't need me. So. All right, let's see. Here we go. So we do have a couple questions. Good. Keep firing these in. So don't hold any questions in. If you have stuff and you're wondering, should I ask this? Shouldn't I ask it? Just type it in. This is what this is for. So let's see. How do you manage repeat mailings when you're building your direct mail list every week? Oh man, that's a tough one. I'm assuming when you say that you're building your direct mail list every week, you're talking about a new list that's coming out. Like an example of that would be probates. So this is a pain, I will tell you that. Like, so every week, let me just see if I can pull this up. All right, so every week for probates, I get a list of the counties that I do business in, right? So every week it's a new list. So this list came out on 5/1, right? So I get this Excel sheet, it lists all the probates out, and so this is for 5/5. Well, they were filed the week before that. And so every week we get new people, and you have to manage that mailing. And so, yeah, when you're building a list like this, it is definitely a pain to manage it. So we utilize virtual assistants for a lot of the stuff. So they're basically compiling all these lists for us. They're sending them over. So we have a program that we mail out of at our office, and so they're uploading these lists into that database. And so every week, the person that works in the mailroom for me um, is taking those lists, and he's clicking a button. So these lists automatically get uploaded for him. He's clicking a button, and when he clicks the button, it automatically starts to put these addresses on the envelopes, and we have some really high-tech mailing equipment. So bottom line is a lot of this type of work, like the organizational component of it, can be done by a virtual assistant. And so if you go on a site like Upwork.com, if you build out a good system of exactly what needs to be done, this is something that you can get done for $3, $4, $5 an hour. So the site that I'm talking about, Upwork, it's just a virtual assistant kind of portal where you can hire people. So you can post jobs on here and people will bid on them. And at the end of the day, you're really looking for somebody to do this for you. So yeah, it can become a pain. But the other list that you hit, like probates, notice of default, stuff like that, those are all going to have specific trigger dates. So that would change. But most of our mailers actually don't go out to any specific event. So most of our mailers go out to a database of homes that we think are more likely to sell to an investor. So if, like, my office is in Wakefield, and if we're building a database in Wakefield of homeowners whose houses we want to target, we're not specifically going after anything that has a specific date. So the majority of our mailers are going out just whenever we want them to, and it's a lot easier to get into the queue. But probates, inheritances, pre-foreclosures, those ones have the dates attached to them. You just have to develop a better system for that. All right, Bobby, what was the 15% again for 50/50 partners? So the question from Kim was that she had somebody who was putting up half of the cash for a deal, and she wanted to know what was fair, how they should be compensated. And so what I mentioned, the three things up here are basically like, if you talk about it, let's just make it easy, $100,000 profit. What each component of the deal is worth. And so the person who found the deal, who marketed for the deal, got the contract signed, is worth 40%. So they should get 40,000 of the profits. And let's say you had a different person managing the project. That's worth 30%. And they should get $30,000 of the profits for managing the construction. And then the person who lends the money is worth 30%, or 30% of the profits for putting up the money. In Kim's example, the person was actually only putting up half the money, so we divided the 30% by 2 to get 15%, or $15,000 on that deal. All right, let's see. Hugo, can I still use a realtor form even though I don't have a real estate license? I don't believe you can. So I will work with you on getting something together for you specifically, because I don't think that you're allowed to use realtor forms unless you're a realtor. But we can. There are multiple forms for every state, multiple purchase and sale contracts, and you just can't use the one that the realtors per se have created. And there's a difference between a realtor and a real estate agent. The realtor board specifically won't allow you to use it. Now, if you did use it, would it be the end of the world? Probably not, but technically you're not allowed to use it. So I will work with you directly on getting you the forms that you need. All right, Robert, I am tracking down vacant lots to develop. Should I proceed reaching out to the contact listed just like any other lead? These are mostly FSBO, by the way. Well, if they're FSBOs, then they should really, really be easy to contact because you can probably just go online and find their contact information. So, yeah, I would reach out to the contacted person because if they're a FSBO, then they're going to list their phone number there, and that's going to be the best person to contact. So that should make it really easy for you. Joe, how do you get the probate lists? So you have to buy the probate lists. So there are probate list vendors. The one that we use is called, what are they called? They are called Foreclosures Daily. So, and they sell them by county. Yeah, so it's right here, Foreclosures Daily. So this is the company that sells us the probate records. So they sell them by county. We buy 6 counties in Massachusetts. We buy both probates and inheritances. They send them to us on a weekly basis, and I believe for the entire year, that cost us about 20 grand. But we're in 6 counties. So obviously if you divided that by 6, each county for the entire year might be about 3 grand. How often do you mail probates and your other lists? Depends on the list. Depends on the list. So each different list we target a little bit differently. For example, like a notice of default, somebody who's behind on their mortgage in Massachusetts, it may take up to 2 years for that person to actually get foreclosed on. And if you know anything about pre-foreclosures, most of the people wait to the very last day to do something. So literally, like if you mail them the second that they become late, it can be 2 years later that they actually make a decision to do anything. So a lot of times they literally wait until the auction date before they actually move. So on like a pre-foreclosure, we're going to hit them a lot differently than a probate. So like on a probate, that person, realistically speaking, is probably going to sell fairly quickly because somebody's inheriting a property. They're probably not going to move into it themselves. They're probably going to want that property gone as soon as possible so that they can get the cash in their hand as soon as possible. So it really depends on the list. So to give you, an example, on the pre-foreclosures, we're going to hit them every other month for a couple of years in addition to calling them all the time. So on anything that you're doing when it comes to mailing, you always want to call as well because the reality is in 2017, everybody's mailing. So every investor knows that mailing works. And so if you're just mailing, you're going to be one of many. And so the way to combat that is by calling, because if you're calling and mailing, you are going to be one of the few that is doing both. And we try to do that as much as we can. We do that on the pre-foreclosures, and we are working on now thinking about doing that for the probates as well, given that a couple of people have told me recently that they've had really good success with calling on the probates. What sequence of letters are you using? Do they refer to previous letters? Yeah, when it comes to marketing in general, like people aren't gonna like you don't need to go in sequence, because the reality is that people aren't going to remember. So like if the first letter is kind of like an intro, and then the second letter is like, hey, this is the second time we've talked to you, and then the third one's the reality is that they're really not going to remember, and they're not going to be like, oh yeah, this is the third letter that somebody sent me. I remember in the first one that they told me about this, this, and this is now a progression. I would definitely not worry about that at all. I would actually send a very similar one, and that's what we do. We send, a little bit of variation, like on the last one that we send them, we will write something in there like, okay, just to let you know, like, I'm assuming that you're not interested, so we're going to leave you alone, but if you are interested, please contact us right away. But other than that, we keep them pretty consistent across all channels. Kim's question, have you ever had a problem with the VA entering the wrong fields into the compiled mail list? Makes me nervous to trust strangers to do it right. Yeah, so VAs are kind of like, could be a topic in and of itself, for sure. So a VA is really, in reality, not anything different than a regular employee. And you're looking for the same exact thing in a VA as you are in any single employee. So you could get somebody to come into your office in California and still have the same issue. So at the end of the day, whatever it is that you want to make sure that you're getting done correctly, you have to make sure that you verify it in the very beginning and really stay on top of it until they have the system down completely. So the other way that you could do this is that you could train the VA on how to do it, and then you could have somebody else in your office just double check it. So you never want to have anybody who is a high dollar per hour person doing low dollar per hour work. So even if you want to make sure with 100% certainty that it's done right all the time, you could have the first check being the VA doing it, and then somebody else reviewing it. And so even if you just get that, you're going to save yourself a ton of time. If you have a good short purchase agreement, I need one, non-agent. Yeah, so I'm working on something that I'm hoping can kind of suit the needs of most of the people throughout the country. I'm having my attorney work on that, and we're going back and forth on whether or not that can actually be done. So, Mark, I'll definitely get back to you on that. All right, Hugo, would it be possible to connect with other team investors in California? Yes, definitely. Definitely the in-person event would be the easiest way to do that, but we can have some other things too as well, where it connects the different people in the office. What are your favorite mail list sources? Do you like Rebo Gateway or Find Motivated Sellers Now? My favorite list sources are me doing the database myself. So I like to build the databases myself. So what you're referencing, Find Motivated Sellers Now, is kind of a shortcut to what I like to create. So Find Motivated Sellers Now is a pretty cool system, because Find Motivated Sellers Now allows you to literally just, actually let me open this so that I can show everybody what it is. Because I do own Find Motivated Sellers Now, and I do like it if you don't have a lot of time on your hands. But I'm going to tell you what I think the negatives of it are.
Hey, what's up, guys?
So Find Motivated Sellers Now is basically a way to compile lists really quickly. So let's say that I go into Massachusetts, and the county that I operate in, I operate in a lot of these counties, but let's say the county that I'm sitting in right now. So what it allows you to do, it allows you to go and, let's see the city. All right, so what Find Motivated Sellers now, it allows you to build a list. And so, for example, like right now in today's market, you want to target people with equity, right? So somebody who owes $280,000 in their house and the property's worth 320 and your offer would be 240 is never going to take your offer. So when you're mailing or calling or building a list in general, you want to make sure that you have enough equity in the property. So this allows you to check off the equity. You can check off whether it's a vacant property, if they live outside the state, if they've owned the property for 5 years, how old they are, etc. So you can basically make up your own list. The negative that I found to this is that it doesn't actually put all the filters that I like. So for example, the filter here, owner has lived in the property for at least 5 years. So I actually don't like that filter. I like a filter of 10 years, right? So this doesn't allow me to do that. This also doesn't allow me to do anything on assessed value, which I have a feeling, Kim, is going to be important in your market too, because we're both in markets where there's some extremely, extremely high-priced houses. And so in the extremely high-priced selling areas, they have high assessed values, and those ones are very unlikely to sell to us directly. And in a lot of cases, I don't want those properties directly. I mean, I don't want to buy those properties. So I don't like spending money on houses that I really don't want. So another thing that I like to put on as a filter is the age of the home. So in Massachusetts, most of the properties were built between 1880 and 1920. And so we have some really old houses that make a lot of sense to target. But then there's also some properties that were built after 1970. So anything that was built after 1970 is considered fairly new. And so in Massachusetts, I don't want to hit that person because that person is unlikely to have a house that's in bad condition. So I could kind of go on and on and on about this, but I'm a big proponent of building your own database for each city that you're looking to target. So I'll just show you exactly what that looks like in my world. So these are my records. So for every city that I'm targeting in, I have a database of each particular city. So if you look in Chelsea, which is a city like right outside of Boston, these are all the people that I'm hitting. You know, mailers, calling, putting up ads in front of Google and Facebook and stuff like that. So it takes a lot more time to do this, but I've gotten much better success. The other thing, just as an example, like, so if you download this, you're also going to get, you're also going to end up mailing or calling people that own properties in LLCs and who are real estate agents. So we actually get really, really targeted. We don't want to mail anybody who owns their property in an LLC because they're probably an investor. We don't want to mail real estate agents, so we try to filter that out as much as possible. So we spend a lot of time building our list. But if you said to me, like, I want a list tomorrow that's pretty good, like 80% good, Find Motivated Sellers Now is a great way to do that. But we want to get even better than that. All right, Kevin, not sure if this is pertinent here. Is it normal for lead flow to be slow in the beginning? Does it ramp up, just hungry for leads? So yeah, I mean, it's really too soon to even, you know, venture a guess at that. At the end of the day, the leads that we guarantee in the contract that we sign we're going to get them to you. If I have to come out of pocket for that, I'll come out of pocket for that. It could be that it's, you know, slow, but it's really way, way too early to even judge. I mean, after about probably a month, it would make a little bit more sense to even, you know, take a look at it. But you know, over the course of the 10 to 12 weeks, you will definitely get a minimum of the amount of leads that we guarantee, for sure. The other thing to just kind of understand is that although the amount of the marketing budget that you have is not small, it's also not huge in terms of motivated seller marketing. So really what you're going to be looking to do is, get out with somewhere between 1 to 2 people per week. There are also some other, like, we can talk more about this offline, but at the end of the day, we're going to get you enough leads to get out with enough people. So yeah, but it is a little too soon to even really analyze that. All right, guys, anything else? Anything else? Type it in. I'll definitely go over anything that we have. All right, I'm going to keep it open for 1 more minute just to see if anything else lingers. And if not, for those of you who aren't registered to come to Boston, definitely we want to see your faces. It's nice to talk on the phone, but I am curious to see what some of you people look like. I can see you on Facebook, but face to face is a little bit better. And I can guarantee you are going to leave here with a lot of clarity, and you're going to see how a lot of our systems work. So it will be very beneficial. So I will definitely be announcing more about that as we go on. If everybody likes the event, I will probably host it on a quarterly basis. Maybe we can even go outside of my office at some point. Some of these other people that do things like this, they have them like in Vegas and stuff like that. So I'm open to getting some feedback after we do the first one as to how frequent they should be and also where they should be held. But I definitely think the first one for sure should be at our office, because you're going to really be able to see how everything works here on a day-to-day basis, and you're going to see people who are in here doing their regular jobs on Thursday and Friday. So all right, well, I don't see anything else coming in, so thank you for the questions. Get all your questions in on the Facebook page, which is questionsfortom.com, and I appreciate you guys being on the call. I will see you next Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern, and I appreciate the people, by the way, who are on the West Coast. So you guys are up real early to be on the call, so I definitely appreciate you taking the time. All right, guys, thanks.